I'm here with Danny Gitakis. He is a program analyst here at BCLC. Hi, Danny.
I am.
What inspired you to pursue a career in the programming industry?
Inspiration. That's a difficult question because it's many things, whether it's a long-term career or money. But it really just comes down to its interest. It really is just that.
Having fun?
Yeah, it's computing science. It is fun, as confusing as it may sound for a lot of people. Programming is problem solving. It's being creative. It's expressing your own self in the solution, and then giving that solution to somebody else. Yeah, that's pretty much what it wasn't one event that inspired me. It was just a general interest that sort of guided me into this career.
Just getting paid to do what you like to do, right?
Yeah, that's the best thing about. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Which is any good career.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when you went to UCC, which is now TRU, they didn't provide co-op, but I know for a fact that you are a strong advocate of co-op. Why do you suggest co-op?
Wow. Co-op provides education that you can't get in the classroom, and it provides it at the same time as you are in the classroom. Relatively speaking, it doesn't happen at the exact same moment. Classroom education is very formal. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know exactly, or the instructor knows exactly what to expect of you. In the real world, and I mean real world in that you're getting paid, you're doing something just to benefit yourself, giving it to an employer or to a wider audience. There is no very formal way to do something. That is maturity. That's also a level of education that you can't express in the classroom. So that's why I'm an advocate for. And as I mentioned, it happens at the same time. So you don't finish school, then finally get a job, but realize, wow, I don't know something, or this isn't the career I really wanted. It was fun in the classroom, but it's not fun now. Doing it at the same time is a lot better. It would be like learning how to ride a bike by reading a book. Yeah, you could graduate with make fun, but until you actually get on a bike, you're never going to learn how to ride a bike.
Right. And you're getting paid to learn, so that's
you're getting if it's a good co-op job, you're getting paid. Yeah, it's not. People confuse co-op type education with an internship. It's similar, yes, but internship really is you go into a company and they'll just make you work like you're almost a slave to a certain degree. That's what being an intern is. Like they're granting you this privilege of being part of the company. Cooperative education is the school and the company have an agreement that you're getting something out of it. So if this is part of your education, you have to pay the school to actually be part of the co-op, and the company gets a little bit of if you will, a stipend or a spit from the government. Say, oh, we're providing this educational opportunity, we're going to give you some tax breaks or something. An internship, you might not even get paid. So co-op is something special. It's been a real advocate for.
Okay, so how long have you been working here at BCLC?
6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 years.
Okay, and in those 6 years, how much has the field that you work in changed from a non-technical point of view?
Yeah, so not like actually doing like the actual technical specific work, but for the general work environment. I think it's changed in that probably in one major respect is that people have been here for a long time are retiring or leaving, and there's newer people coming in. So people fresh out of school or just picked up a certain skill set and they're transferring from one department to another. That's pretty much it. I don't see a lot of the corporate structure changing that is forcing you to, okay, you're not doing this job, you're going to do that job. That's almost a personal decision. But it's really just the people change more than that. It's the same thing. Technology changes and certain things move from one to another, but it's pretty much the same job. Programming is programming. It's just who you work with and who's telling you to do something.
And on a daily basis, what do you do? What do you work on? What do you provide?
That's an excellent question because I don't know if I could even answer that to my boss. Most of the work is one of three things. One will be actually we have a project, we have the requirements, so we have to write the software that meets the requirements. We have times that we have a schedule that it has to be done on. There's testing times. It's very laid out. Now, I did mention formal education. It's not formal in the sense of you're being graded on work, and the solution is known ahead of time. We actually have requirements that your software must do this, but we don't know how it's going to end up doing it. That's your job to figure out the solution. So that's one part. The other part is the process of getting to those requirements, getting those solutions, sitting down and doing the design. And that's the art of computing, if you will. How do I get this box, which is just a bunch of wires, to do it? And that's not sitting down at a keyboard and typing messages. Contemplating all the various tools and technologies and all the software that's available. How can we get that together? How do you get that as a design? And the third part, just screwing around.
Having a good time.
Yeah. No great thing has ever been done by somebody sitting down for a long time and working through the problem. You have to meet accidents. You need time to just mess around with it, to ask the questions, what if? So that there's that component. So on a day-to-day basis, it's three variables, and it's like how much of one or another. Currently, right now, today, working on a fairly large project, and it's a fairly tight timeline. So most of my day is taken sitting at a computer and just writing code and talking with my coworkers to make sure that my solution is jiving with their solution, so that we're not going in two different directions. But we all have a design that we did like months ago that will work.
Do you ever get like projects at the same time and you have to balance them, or is it just strictly like you get one project and this is the date it's due?
It's a bit of both. Some around here, because BCLC is such a large company, we all work on you got a couple of weeks. Why don't you finish in a couple of weeks? A lot of the stuff that I work on week number 1 for me is week 12 for somebody else. So they've done a whole bunch of work, and then my week 12 is week 1 for someone else. The quality assurance departments after I'm done, theirs is done. So the timeline is fairly laid down because there's coordination. Technologies have to be worked out. And if some of the servers, when your software has to be up to stuff and ready to go. Other times, we don't know if something's going to run. So let's just do it, and when it's done, it's done. Those are the what-if projects. If somebody's willing to put time and money into the possibility of something working, once it does work, then it actually goes through the whole proper chain of doing a proper analysis and making sure it goes out. We don't like to waste money, but we're willing to try something.
Okay. You also said that like when you somebody's week 12 and it's your week 1, is it like it's gone from one step to you're the next step of testing and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it.
Okay.
It's going from one phase to the other, and that's all. We've got project managers and team leads who are coordinating that outside of us. And a lot of the times in a project, depending on the level, the programmer like myself will take on that role. So we sort of step away from the programming and we spend time on that design, making sure that everybody who needs to know knows it.
So like the efficiency of the program and like the layout kind of?
I think the layout.
Okay.
We sort of, when we mentioned efficiency, although we like to try and make everything as efficient as possible, sometimes we step back from that and go, the time and effort that would take to make sure that something's the most optimal and efficient way it is, takes away from actually getting the job done. So we have like tolerance levels, like your software must be able to finish this in X amount of time. If you can make it work in half the time, that's great, but it's not important.
Yeah.
You just need to make it work.
It's got to work.
It's just got to work. You got 3 weeks to work on it, just make the thing work. But then the layer that's part of that, like making sure that all the some software that would have 5 or 6 pieces, other stuff like hundreds of pieces of software all talking to each other. This weird dance of technology. If one thing just steps out of line, everything else just collapses. So we have to make sure that all the software has its own movements, right? That's all layers of software. That's the art of what we do.
Okay, so we've been talking about teamwork and working in teams. What do you think are the most beneficial parts of working in a
a downside to working in a team first. There's a definite upside, but I mentioned the downside of working in a team is that you have to depend on other people.
Right.
A lot of people in IT, well, I would have to say most people in IT, but a lot of people in IT are independent problem solvers. They've gone through school that way. They've got a project. You just work on it on your own. And a lot of computing science instructors sort of push that. You don't work on teams. It's cheating. So you go through school with this whole, I've got to figure it out. I've got to do it myself.
It's individual.
Yeah, it's very individual. You write the exam on your own. You don't write it as a group. So, and when you do work on teamwork, it seems, I remember in school, it seemed very uncomfortable sometimes. Like, you got to depend on this person who you barely even know in a class, and then you say hi to them, or her like once or twice a day, like otherwise you don't know. So that carries on into the workplace. So a lot of us are very independent problem solvers. So the downside of that is a team sort of, the emotion is that it takes away of that. I gotta work with other people right now. If you just let me work on my own, I'll figure it out. So that's what is the downside? But it's not a real downside. So the upside of teamwork is you're not the best at what you do. You might be great at what you do, but you're not the best at what you do. You have to prove yourself constantly that what you're doing is right and wrong. If you encounter a problem, the beautiful thing about working in a team is you're not on your own. In school, you actually might be on your own. You might ask, someone else for some help, but the instructor is not going to give you the answer. In the business world, of course, I'm going to give you an answer. Yeah. If you're working on a problem and you can't figure it out, why would somebody say, well, you know what? If you just step back and look 3 lines ahead, or did you read the chapter of the book? No, it doesn't give you the answer because the problem's there.
They're going to put their own input.
Exactly. And when I say you're not the best at what you do, that's absolutely true when you're designing something. You might have one way of looking at it. And most of the time, most people don't see more than one way to do something. Especially if you're under a timeline or you're constrained by, I got to get this thing solved. The first solution sometimes is the only and best solution. If you're working in a team, a lot of people might, well, that's a good idea, but they just think about this. I did. Right. So that's a good side of teamwork. Then it comes down to the bad side again, which is you actually have to do the work on your own. Programming as a specific talent, programming is a very independent thing. It's like a writer and a journalist writing a story, writing an article, writing a book. You do that independently. I can't imagine 2 people sitting at the same keyboard, or both people at 2 different terminals writing on the same program at the same time. That would be impossible. It wouldn't work. So the teamwork side is very high level. That's for usually design, parsing out what needs to be done, make sure the solution's right, make sure that it's attacked at least once or twice from a different angle, make sure that what's being designed is right, proper. Then everyone sort of leaves, does it, comes back together again, or if you have issues, you get somebody else to look at your problem. Oh, yeah, okay, I just need to do that. So that's teamwork. We hate it, but we love it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the most proud moments, like project-wise? Like, what are some of the projects you've worked on and you're most proud of?
Personally, and I hope you're asking me not in general. Personally, the stuff I love the best is where I can solve a problem that number one somebody said would be difficult or impossible, or nobody ever thought of it before, right? Or it didn't make sense to think about it. Like to think about that solution, like, why would you ever do it that way? And you end up doing it, and it's better than either not having done it, or it's better than the solution that was proposed before, or what was impossible. People said, there's no way that could be done, and you're able to do it. But able to do it in a very efficient, very quick, very simple manner that everyone can understand. Those are the proudest things. So the last one that I did, and it's such a minor little, small little thing, I'm so proud of it, was the lottery terminals, the older ones that we have very difficult time thinking about graphics. So a lot of the stuff that we do is with ASCII art, so there's dashes, slashes, like a smiley face. It was all made of character. So I figured out a way to efficiently take an image that the computer generates within its memory. So it actually doesn't have the image, generates it in its memory, and sends it to the printer. And it prints it relatively fast, previous to that, there was no way that that could be done. Or if there was so much software would be required to get that to work. So I just figured out the most simple, understandable way to do it. And it very proud of it. Are we using it a lot? Really, but I'm proud of it.
Yeah, it's those moments where you're the first one to figure it out.
That's what it is. Now the other part I'm proud of is when as a group we actually accomplish something, and we accomplish it. And we've got a saying around here: on time, on budget, no major issues. Which means we're able to do it within the timetable. We're able to do it with the money that was allotted for the project, and we did it with no major problems. And if there was a problem, it was like, let me just, there we go, now it's good. So those are the three things. If we can do that as a group, we're all sort of kind of, the teamwork that you mentioned. We did work well with the team. Times where we don't work well with the team, which is very difficult to think of times we don't work well with the team, especially my group. Things were just bad from the onset. The project was bad. It was badly managed, so everybody got frustrated. Things weren't working right because the design wasn't right. So get to the end, everyone's just frustrated and angry at each other. So you're definitely not proud of that. But when it works right, it's good.
Okay, next question. Do you think that the comp sci industry attracts a specific personality or aptitude?
Personality or aptitude? I think it does. I think the traditional view of computer, and I'll say computer people, and not the atypical nerd. There's nerds about everything. I've got friends who are movie nerds. I work with a guy who's a sports nerd. There's only any sports store from a hockey field.
Like 10 years ago.
I don't even know most of the rules of hockey. This guy knows all the sports. So there's nerds about everything. But I think computing attracts people who think independently. So they think on their own. They like to problem solve on their own. They also like to do something that no one else has done before. So they'll read and get through the book. These are the people you find in the library with an actual book, and they realize that nobody's ever checked this book out. Well, that's cool. I'm going to check that book out. Why does nobody else check it out? And flip through it and figure out a solution. They're not fully academic, so they're not going to read the whole book. But computing people read just the thing that interests them. They don't have to be very, very, very smart, but they're very intelligent. So a computer person is very intelligent. The difference between intelligence and smart, in my view, is an intelligent person is intelligent. You can't get more or less intelligent. Smart is like reading books, experiencing. The longer you live, the smarter you get. If you're intelligent, you're just intelligent. You're inquisitive. You want to know what the solution is. If something went wrong, and you ask, well, that's funny. How did that happen? So computing sort of attracts that view. But also attracts the person who's willing to commit, and this is the worst thing about computing people. It attracts a person who's willing to commit time and energy to finish something that nobody else sees as valuable. Ever. They're willing to just spend hours and days and months and years sometimes working on something that nobody cares about. The computer person will sit there designing a web page to the best pixel on the screen, and most people just scroll past it. Yeah. So I think that's the personality. It's men, it's women, boys, girls, those really matter. I think predominantly boys. And I'm not being stereotypical in this regard, but I think boys, we can fixate a lot easier. Girls have a broader sense of awareness. They'll pick up on stuff. Boys they'll focus on stuff to the point that everything's just disregarded. If you're watching a good movie, the building could be collapsing. You're in on it. Yeah. Whereas where girls will have a different view of that. So I think that's why computing seems to attract boys. But I do have one more point. Once you get into school, often I want to be a computer person. I want to learn how to program computers. You'll have your personal computer at home. You've written some software, designed some web pages, or you play video games, and you think that's going to be cool. You get to school and you realize, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of studying, there's a lot of work I need to do. What do you mean you got to take math? What do you mean you got to take English? Science? What am I taking science for? I want to be a computer person. Those are probably the people that make the forest computer people. Like once you get into the business world, people I work with on a day-to-day basis are artists, they're musicians, they're writers. I've never been published, but I like to write a little poetry here and there. You know, I find language really fascinating. We get documentation from the business people. And there's grammar errors. Business people. So I'm correcting their grammar. It's who I am. There's sports, you know, people who are really interested in sports. Mountain climbers, skydivers. No, very few people that I work with are, I love computers, that's all I do. I go home and I spend, 5 or 6 hours on the internet, then I go to sleep. I don't know of anybody that I work with that's like that, which would be the stereotypical computer person. Most people I know are, they have other interests. They just happen to find computing fascinating. Yeah, so I think that's who it attracts is somebody who finds it interesting, but is also somebody who does everything else.
Keeping on that topic, should an effort be made to attract a wider spectrum of personalities and aptitudes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason for that is computing itself, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, it was very structured. Like there was mainframes, and after that, there were personal computers. But most people didn't really understand computing. Most people didn't even know what they were, let alone use them every day. Now, from cell phones to bank machines to the internet, telephones, television, everything you do has some sort of computing aspect about it. That needs writers, it needs artists, it needs those people I was talking about. So, yeah, you should be promoting computing science in such a wide breadth of skill sets. You don't want to say, hey, you should be a computer person, and the response would be, I don't know how to program a computer. Well, your response to that is, that doesn't matter, because I don't want you to program a computer. We need your artistic, we need your sense of language, we need your ability to communicate. That's what we need to solve this problem. Computing is not about sitting and writing a program. There's a lot of it. Somebody's got to do it. But the solution isn't just that person. It needs mathematicians, it needs biologists. The internet, not the internet, the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee, one of my heroes, who created the World Wide Web because he thought it would be a good idea. Is a physicist. Really? Yeah. And he learned computing because he needed it to run his physics simulation. So in school, he learned computing because he needed to, not because he found it aptitude. This guy created the World Wide Web. So, no big deal. He just, off the side of his desk, he just created something that his colleagues would find useful. It just so happens that pretty much everybody on the planet finds it useful.
Wow.
Yeah. So it should attract. We should be, as an industry, we should be consciously attracting as many people as we can to it, because it's like architecture or education. If you're a teacher of what? A social studies teacher. Okay, so that means you also teach language and you teach history and you teach communication. You're not just one thing. So computing should definitely attract as many people as possible. All areas.
And my final question is, what kind of advice would you give people trying to start their career in the comp science industry?
Do as much as you can, which means take as many courses as you can, not just in computing, as I've expressed, in a wide background. Don't feel that you're limited by the time. If you're in computing, you can't take that course. Also, at the same time, take as many computing courses as you possibly can. Technology changes so quickly. Almost on a day-to-day basis, I'm extremely frustrated that I don't know something. Because if I knew a little bit more, maybe I could, my solution would be better. Or if I knew a little bit more about that, I would be able to maybe design a little bit more. Or why does that person know something I don't know? So you have to constantly improve yourself. If you don't get into that field when you're in school, you just think that computing, once you've graduated, you know everything you need to know. If anything, that's the first step of knowing what you need to know. So my advice is just to stay as wide and open as possible can. At the same time, be focused. I don't say be focused, but be focused on, let's say you want to be a web web page design, not website design, design a whole interface. Well, you'll need art, you'll need language, you'll need programming. So, keep that focus. If you want to be a network solutions administrator, you got to learn almost every operating system possible. You'll have to learn how to debug and analyze, which means a lot of research, reading through books. You're probably not going to be doing a lot of art, a lot of writing, but you're going to be doing a lot of problem solving. So make sure you have that. Make sure you have the network administration and operating systems. So there's a focus, but at the same time, always trying to stay with the broad. Always take an English course. I don't care what it is. You should always have at least one English course, which is I think every computer program or at a school teaches you. You've got one English course because if you can't talk or read, you're useless. So yeah, that's my best advice: is keep yourself open, but also have focus. If you don't have focus, just wander aimlessly and never graduate.
Okay, thank you, Yanni, for your time. It was a pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to shake your hand, but you got it.
Yeah, I'm sick. I'm sick.